Can I get you to hold this?
Sure.
Okay. Welcome everybody to this artist talk today. I just, as a note, originally this was planned as a conversation with David Garneau. Unfortunately, David Garneau cannot be here today. So Jinny has graciously offered to do an artist talk. So we're very happy that you're all here today. We're together. So thank you all for coming out. It's a gorgeous day. I know it's time that you're generously sharing with us today. So welcome to this exhibition, Jinny Yu's The World is Burning and I Am Painting. My name is Wendy Peart and I'm the Director-Curator of Dunlop Art Gallery and also the curator of this exhibition. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the land upon which we gather is Treaty 4 territory, the traditional lands of the Nehiwa, Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, Saulteaux, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. As a settler person on these stolen lands, my intentions are to recognize and interrogate my privilege on a daily basis. And through my work at Dunlop Art Gallery, which seeks to center perspectives of other people, other cultures, and other people, I hope to contribute to the building of communities that focus on care and reciprocity. I would also like to thank our key funders of the Dunlop Art Gallery, who are Sask Arts, Canada Council for the Arts, Sask Galleries, Sask Culture, and the Department of Canadian Heritage. Thank you to all the people that made this exhibition the success it is, including the staff of Dunlop Art Gallery, who are John Cody, Sarah Pittman, Eric Hill, Stacey Fant, Aisha Mosen, Margaret Asai, who's outside, Yuji Zhang, and Shamim Gimiha, and John David. I would also like to thank Amber Christensen, who is the Executive Director of the Central Library, for all of her support. And thanks to the Sherwood Village Library staff who are out there, who work very closely with customer engagement. Most importantly, I want to thank Jinny, who was a complete, still is a complete joy to work with. Also, thanks to her wonderful studio assistant, Jinny, another Jinny, who made the arrangements of this exhibition completely effortless. So, a little bit about Jinny. Before we go there, though, before I forget, I want to point out that Jinny has this amazing catalog that we have a copy in that'll be in the gallery at all times. But if you're interested in purchasing a copy, we have information on that outside the gallery on the reception table, so you can snap a photo if you want to look further into that. We'll also get some of these copies in our collection in a little bit. So Jinny Yu is an artist based in Ottawa and Berlin. Through the medium of painting, she explores the complexities of belonging and place by reflecting on the shifting roles of guest and host. Her work has been widely exhibited, including the Art Gallery of Ontario, the 56th Venice Biennale, the Kunst Doc Art Gallery in Seoul, and her works are held in major collections such as the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts, the Art Gallery of Ontario, the Musée National des Beaux-Arts du Québec, and Jinny is represented by Nicolas Metavier Gallery. Sorry, I might have mispronounced that. So please welcome Jinny.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I also want to thank Dunlop Art Gallery staff and everybody who have welcomed me so warmly here. I've been here since last Sunday afternoon, and I've thoroughly enjoyed being here. I spent Monday to Wednesday in this room painting this mural, and I was here all day, and just being here within the library, just being here, being fed, being housed, and just painting all day was just so magical. And just before coming here, on my bedside is this book by Ruth Ozeki called The Book of Form and Emptiness. And there's a teenage boy who features in there, he's a delinquent teenager who spends time in library. And I think it's based in Vancouver Library, but it was a very seamless transition for me to be spending so much time in library setting, and I really enjoyed it. I'm here, as a visitor to the Treaty 4 territory. Grateful to be hosted here on the traditional land of Nehiawak, Nakave, Nakota, and also homeland of Métis, Dakota, and Lakota Nation. I am coming here, as Wendy said. I've been guesting on the land of Anishinaabe Algonquin peoples, also known as Ottawa. I go back and forth between Ottawa and some other places, including Berlin. I have somehow my life brought me to many, many places. I was born in Seoul and then emigrated to Montreal and then lived in Toronto, Sackville, Venice, Ottawa, Berlin, And throughout all this kind of migratory trajectory, I felt a certain sense of disconnection or distance or what's the word? I guess disconnect in a way. And that actually, I think, has a lot to do with my ease with abstraction. Abstraction, I think, some abstraction is about having this distance and seeing patterns, either zooming out or zooming in. And for me, having this kind of distance between the reality that I was in and kind of me removing from that reality and seeing it as kind of a pattern, I think made me very comfortable with abstraction. In addition to the traditional ink and brush painting of Korean tradition, as well as I was trained in Montreal. Montreal abstraction, kind of long history of les plasticiens, Revue Globale, people like this. And so I think abstraction came to me quite naturally. And so I am exploring the world. It's basically what I do as an artist is to try to make sense of what I'm doing here. Like, who am I? What am I doing here, basically? And I do that with tools that I know best, which are painting, brush, paint, surface. And so the title of this show, The World is Burning and I Am Painting, is kind of like a, continuation of what I've been thinking. And I will kind of walk you through a little bit of how I got to this point, and I'll also walk you through what happened all about the works that you're seeing in this space. So all this migratory kind of past that I have and present that I have led me to think about this quote by this 11th century monk, Hugues de Saint-Victor, a French monk who said, one is born feeling home at home. As one goes around, and I'm paraphrasing, as one goes around the world, one feels home anywhere. But the perfect man, 11th century male monk, perfect man feels foreign everywhere. And, when I was around 40, I felt foreign everywhere. And I was like, yes, I have arrived at this stage where I can see reality with in an objective way, clearly, and so on. And it's all good, all my trying to belong or find a way to fit in or whatever is all good. I do not fit in, and I'm very fine with it. And I was very happy to have arrived at this state where I don't have to struggle. But then Canada celebrated in 2017, Canada celebrated its 150th anniversary. And I was kind of hearing all these conversations about what is it that we are celebrating really? Are we celebrating colonization? And then there was this conversation between the colonized and the colonizer. And I was trying to figure out where do I fit within this spectrum as somebody who is a relatively recent immigrant to this place. And at around the same time, I was invited to an artist residency in Dawson City, the land of Trandekhuichin peoples, where I began to learn about the history of colonization in this place. History of colonization happened in many other places in the world, as you know, but I was learning about this very specific place. And, I went there with this like satisfaction of having found this state of being okay with who I was in this world, feeling foreign everywhere. It's perfect. But I went to Dawson City, made friends with some people who were there. And, I was walking with Henry in Moose Hide area, where he knew every plant that was there, because that's where his people have been there for centuries, millennia. And he knew what plant was new, and this kind of knowing and sense of belonging that I saw kind of made me feel like, sense of belonging is actually something really beautiful. And made me also think about the sense of belonging that comes with care, that comes with sense of responsibility, that when one belongs, one takes care of the land that one belongs to. And so I was a bit thrown off of my newly found peace. And I was, trying to figure out what all this was about. And it was almost like the sense of belonging that, for example, my mother has when she's in Suwon, her native city. When she goes, her family has been there for centuries. They know me, like just because I look like my mom. And, the way that she belongs to that place is so beautiful. She doesn't have so much of that in Montreal, where she is currently, but I somehow felt this when I realized that sense of belonging is okay, I don't need it. And then I was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful a thing and quite necessary for us to be responsible for the land on which we live. And that this permanent guesthood is actually not so good, because guesthood has a limited sense of responsibility. And so I made some works trying to process all that, kind of expressing how I felt as I was learning what it was for me to be living here. So the first work that I made was called Perpetual Guest. And it is a work that is a pure expression of how I felt, having realized that I was actually a settler on this land. And then after I did that work, I realized that simply acknowledging my state as a perpetual guest is not enough, and that the state of being perpetual guest is problematic. And so then I thought about, so can guest and host share responsibility? Can guest be host? Can host guest? This kind of question made me produce another work called Hôte. It's H-O-T with a little chapeau, a little accent circumflex, which in French can mean both guest and host. And so this, it's basically a series of 42 drawings that has a motif of a door. So like, guesting and hosting, going through the door kind of things. Abstraction, just like, rectangle within a square, basically. It started with black on white. And because that's when I started to think about can guest host, can host guest, and so on. And in the middle of, as I was making this during the pandemic, I fell upon this word oat, which was brought to my attention by this essay written by Derrida called Of Hospitality, in which he talks about, this word having both the signification of guest and host. And at that point, my drawings became gray, and then I thought about guest and host both taking responsibility of the people that we that live in a place, and I was really hoping that that is good ending. So we all take responsibility. It's all good, and I have now I found another piece. So I'm always kind of trying to, I guess, find an equilibrium or a place where I am feeling okay. And then I thought, that's all good. But then I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, Ian Jung, who is an art theorist in Seoul. And I was telling her about the story. And of course, she said, not quite fast. You must dwell in it. It doesn't get resolved that fast. This kind of deep historical wrongdoings and what you're doing here. And so I realized, of course, she's right. And I decided that it is something that I have to still think through, explore, find a place where, try to be, get to a place where it works. And I don't really know what that means yet. I feel like it's a very, very long process. So I got to that place where I'm like, oh my God, I haven't resolved anything yet. I'm still like at a very beginning stage. And then at around that time, when I was finishing this series Oat, I was also questioning, and up to that point, I have to say, I was using just black paint, color black on any surface. I was questioning whether that was valid, that I could still paint just black in 2021 without necessarily considering the socio-political implication of the color black. There was a friend of mine, Tamer El Sheikh, who directed me to a text called All Black Everything, written by Jared Sexton, that kind of talks about use of black by painters in a socio-political way. And then there was also the BLM movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, and so many other things happened in the world and in my life where I kind of had this question. I didn't really think about switching back to color at all, but somehow this transition happened quite naturally with this questioning. And also one of the things that happened was that I was gifted a paint set, a watercolor set, by the curator Georgiana Ulierik, who is actually the one who curated the originating show at the AGO. This is kind of a version, what you're seeing here is kind of a version of the originating show that happened last year. And so curator Georgiana Ulierik gifted me this paint set called, it's by Beam Paint. It's made by Anong Beam, who is the daughter of Carl Beam, but with minerals and materials that she finds in her homeland, Manitoulin Island. And it's widely available. But basically the paints are the colors are not like synthetic. They're not like, cadmium red, like alizarin crimson. They're like very earthy colors. And the set that I was gifted is called Agnes Martin set. And so basically I had white, black, gray, and bluish gray in that. So paint stones, I had 4 paint stones of those colors. And, I had been painting just in black for the past 12 years or so up to that point. And so this gift set somehow was given to me, and I started to make small watercolors because, once I finish some kind of project, there's a time when I don't really know what I'm doing. And I don't know. So I just take papers, whatever that's around, and I make whatever. And that's when I made that first watercolor that's over there. That was so funny. So, hello. So the one that's above our new guests. And I was thinking about, this notions of host and guest, which is not binary, which cannot be necessary. How do I think about this positionalities of host and guest without them being so binary? And these cuboids, wonky cuboids that I call, and I don't think it's any technical term, I just came up with it. These cubes that are wonky came up as image. I was reading this book by Edwin Abbott called Flatland. It's a small novella written in 1863 or something. He's a physicist, humanist, theologian, one of those people who do many, many things. And it's basically satire of Victorian society, of these class systems, but he does it by dimensions. So 0 dimension is, dot, 1 dimension, 2 dimension, the shapes, 3 dimension, and a shape. So people are shapes, or, lines or dots. This, a sphere tries to come to the 2nd dimensional world and try to explain what the 3 dimension is to a circle. This sphere says it's essentially like your discs of increasing sizes stacked one above another, and then at some point decreasing size circles are stacked on top, and that is a sphere. And of course, 2-dimensional world people cannot understand this 3-dimensional shape, and vice versa. And so I was kind of, I always think about this perspective, somebody's perspective that makes it very difficult for that person to understand whatever that is, another perspective. And so anyways, reading this novel and having this paint set, I started to make many cuboid paintings like this as sketches. And here I'm really glad that I'm bringing the very beginning and up until very recent kind of work of this new exploration, I guess. And as I was doing that, I was thinking about how a cuboid or any 3-dimensional geometric form could seem like one corner of, I think that's a good example over there. One corner of a cube could seem like it's protruding or receding, or planes could be side by side. And, this is a very basic pictorial language, when you try to make something illusional. But you can see it as protruding or receding or side by side, but never really the 3 at the same time. But it is not changing. It is the 3 at the same time, except that we cannot see it all 3 at the same time. Our version of seeing it is either or, right? And so I was thinking about, could that kind of, in a way, be a metaphor for this position of host and guest and land and so on? And can I break this illusional space of having this subject or figure on ground? can I break it so that it's all flat? Can I basically, this is, kind of an impossible task, trying to break illusional space that a painting normally strives to, And so that's kind of how I came to this like cuboid, and I started to use many colors. This is kind of the one that I did right after the first cuboid that I did with beam paints. I was invited to do a residency in Côte d'Azur in southern France for a month, and I was doing these sketches. I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I decided to bring 15 pieces of paper of this size and a full watercolor set. And I was, this is the first work that I made there. So like really slowly easing into paint, easing into color, I meant, and trying to somehow make the figure ground relationship flat, like to break the figure ground relationship. And as I was painting the 15 works while I was there, the Mediterranean light is just something that one cannot resist as a painter. It just kind of, I absorbed it, and colors just kind of exploded in the series. So this is the most monochromatic work that I did there. All other 14 other works are very colorful. And I came back and I made some paintings. I normally paint with oil and aluminum sheets. So I made kind of works that are larger in oil and aluminum. And then, at this point, I was trying to break this relationship between figure and ground, which is the basic of picture making or any image. And of course, it's an impossible task. And I like putting myself an impossible task formally and trying to figure out life's questions while doing that. But then I realized I kind of hit a wall where it's just impossible. So like, what am I doing? And I was talking with a friend of mine, Patrick Flores, who actually wrote a very nice essay in the book that Wendy showed. And I was telling him, like I'm doing this and I hit a wall, like I don't know what I'm doing. And he's like, oh, it feels like you have set a point of arrival and this is an impossible arrival point and you're going to it. So of course you've hit a wall. How about you start from there instead of ending there? And of course, that is how I normally work, I kind of with more openness. But somehow with this project, I had decided on endpoint and wanted to get there. So I decided from then on to then use that limitation as starting point and see where I can go, opening up from there. And this encounter was in Berlin. And so in Berlin, I did a whole bunch of gouache works on paper. One of them is that, where these cuboids are opening up. There are areas where this relationship of ground and figure is a bit confusing. For example, the bottom right part, the whole bottom kind of lighter green part can be part of the cuboid or can be part of the ground. And so I was kind of opening up these cuboids a little bit. And from then on, I did another, I did about 10 of these gouache, came back to my Ottawa studio, did oil paintings. And after I did a whole series of these cuboids that are opening up a little bit, I did another series of watercolors that you see in the back over there. And that was done in my Ottawa studio during a summer where I was actually using the watercolor that I'm using now, Schminke. So I was kind of exploring how this paint works. But essentially, it's the same shape that is turning. If you look at the work on the left, The point on the left line is kind of shifted to the point on the top line on the second one, and then point to the right edge on the third, and then pointing to the bottom edge on the right. And so I was just kind of having fun, actually, thinking about this impossibility of seeing all three positions at the same time, thinking about host and guest, but also having a lot of fun with colors and shapes and so on. And I did another set of paintings. I normally spend the winter months in Berlin, and so this is what I did following winter. And so this exhibition is kind of a transforming touring exhibition. First at the AGO, curated by Georgiana Olieric, and then it went to Guido Molinari Foundation in Montreal, where I showed main body of work and this new work, and some works from 2016, like onward. So it was kind of longer kind of period of time show. And then this show that is curated by Wendy Peart here is concentrating only on the works on paper and this mural, which I did on site, but really concentrating just on this series of Inextricably Ours. So I made these works that I had a great time making, and I was trying to think about boundaries. You know how watercolor runs with water. So there's water and there's pigment, and pigment runs where the water is and ends where the water is. And so I was kind of thinking about this idea, made these works, came back to my studio, made some more works on oil, on aluminum. And I thought for this exhibition, showing this kind of progression of this particular series that I called Inextricably Ours, and ending it with this mural, which is kind of something, a different kind of area that I'm exploring these days, this kind of not necessarily cuboid in this three-dimensional illusional cuboids, but more like a overlap. And this wall provided me with a very nice surface to explore this. And I had a wonderful time just concentrating on painting here. So I don't really have so much to say about this because it's very new. I did some sketches in my studio and then I made it here. The sketches are about this big, but when I made it here and after I did, I was kind of walking around, and I really was surprised at dimensionality that this scale provides. If I'm kind of here, this overlap appears so dimensional than when I'm right in front. And this kind of shift in dimension is something that I think a scale can give. And I wonder whether this shift in perspective also could inform me thinking about this idea of host and guest, and if this kind of, it scales up, if I'm in different positions, how differently do I perceive, and so on. I had an amazing meeting with Stacy Fayant, one of Dunlop Art Gallery staff here. And, you know, I wanted to introduce myself, who I was, to somebody who's from here. And she raised a really important point that I think I will take and continue to think through. This idea of the fact that I'm saying guest and host all this time, and it's me who is, as a settler, imposing this position of hosthood to Indigenous people here. And so that is, I think, in a way, violent. And so then I am now then going from here questioning whether even this binary position is something that is a Western construct, and I have to think about it. And I'm really grateful for that conversation I had with Stacy. But overall, I'm trying to think about do what I do best, which is to think about and reflect, spend time. And so that's where the title came from. Yeah, I mean, I can say more, but I think maybe I might open it up to questions if you have, I don't know, welcoming questions or comments or criticisms.
I'm going to help with that. If anyone has a question, we might need to repeat the question so that I can hear. I have a question. The title of this artwork is a little different from some of the other titles. And do you want to talk about that?
So, so this is called superposition. It's a term used in quantum physics. I've been interested in, I know nothing about quantum physics. It's not my background, but I've been interested in quantum physics and the way that physicists also try to figure out what this world is, what we're doing in this world. They do it differently, you know, with formulas and observations and so on and so forth. I do it with paint. I came across a physicist called Shohini Ghosh, and we've been having really nice conversations about the overlap in physics and abstraction and trying to understand the world. And this term superposition is actually very similar to this these multiple positions that one thing can have, one thing has. So it's like these different particles that that can have different positions, basically. I'm just like, you know, in layman, like the way that I understand. And so I thought it was very interesting how our attempt at understanding and the world overlaps. And there are many terms and many ideas in quantum physics that I feel are kind of similar ideas that I'm thinking about. For example, there's quantum entanglement, which, you know, entanglement is a word that we use quite a bit in visual arts. And I think we are living in an entangled world. It's kind of just a reality. And quantum physics also has this idea, and they've, you know, basically observed the phenomenon and figured out this entanglement by formulas. And then there's another term that is very interesting for me called hidden variables, which is title of which I've used as title of my show in Toronto, opening in 2 weeks. But yeah, so it's called superposition, which is not very different from this word inextricably ours. And also this idea of many positions in one being, thing, image, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a little conversation about that yesterday. This idea about being inside your work and outside your work at the same time. And that's what I thought was really interesting, was that the way Jinny represents her work, I feel as if I can be inside of her work at the same time be completely outside of it, which I think too is very much a metaphor of some of the things you're talking about. Are there any other questions that come from? Jinny's going to be around. We are going to, Risa, yes.
Yeah, thanks for going first, Wendy.
Okay, I might repeat your question so catch up.
So I'm thinking about what you're sharing in your work is making me think of the variety of sort of intersections of, and I was at your talk yesterday at the university, so I have the the threshold work, but I think speaks more literally to the host and guest binary that we were exploring. But I'm thinking about how abstraction is commonly perceived. The meaning isn't literal and directly evident. I'm thinking about the title of the exhibition, which could be both hopeful and like a cynical throwing up of hands, right? We go to our studios and we self-soothe, or we can't do everything ourselves. We unilaterally, singularly can't fix the world. I'm thinking about my own positionality as an unsettled settler, right? As a person without place. And I'm thinking about the history of human migration out of Africa. The history of humankind is being one of migration. And you mentioned yesterday having a conversation with David Gardner about conciliation and reconciliation. And some things aren't reconcilable, and I wonder if you can, maybe you spoke about it with respect to superposition, and I wonder if that's about irreconcilability or living with, coming to terms with multiple perspectives, different perspectives, no end goal being possible, no solution, no pleasing everyone. Like, this is what your ideas are raising for me, and I wonder if any of that you want to draw out a little more.
Wow, so Risa just said everything, all these things that we talked about yesterday, and bringing a lot of things to the table. Maybe I'll address one thing that of what you mentioned, the idea of I was talking about this work that I did called Perpetual Guest, this sheet of glass, painting on sheet of glass that is abstract, basically square within a rectangle instead of the other way around. And it was on the floor. I wanted to shift the gaze from vertical to horizontal. I wanted us to look at the land through my painting. And I had on the floor, for example, wherever I was showing, I would put perpetual guest on for example, when I was showing in Gatineau, I said perpetual guest on the unceded territory of Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. And then using the institutional font and institutional language, which was so far either English or French or both. And so it's kind of me just purely expressing how I felt as a newly acknowledged settler. And when I showed that in Montreal, somebody walked on it, and it's untempered glass. The person thought it was an interactive piece. They felt they were invited to walk on it, and so they did. it broke, it shattered. And I asked the gallery to keep all the broken pieces and bring it back to my studio, which they did. And at some point, I opened the box and I started to put the pieces back together. And the museum was very good. They really put every single little pieces that was broken in the box. And so I could actually reconstruct my painting. And while I was putting these pieces back together, I was thinking about the notion of repair. Can I repair my work? What does repair mean? Can Indigenous settler relationship be repaired? And I realized, long and short of it, is that reparation requires a prior precondition of a state that is good. So my work can be repaired because it had a good state, but the indigenous settler relationship cannot be repaired because it never had a good state. And this is when I mentioned David Garneau's idea of it's not about reconciliation, it's about conciliation, where, it's not about repairing, it's about, I think, trying to figure out how we go from here. It's not going back, it's not going to a state which never was good. And so that's what this piece taught me, in a way. Thinking about the notion of repair, but it's not an impossibility. So for me, like it's impossibility in the sense of right now, but I don't think it's irreconcilable. It's not irreconcilability. I think I'm a hopelessly romantic person. Who thinks that it is possible and to make things slightly better for us, and so I don't think it's irreconcilability that it's but it's true that the title does imply this impossibility. But I do think that through this piece, I was thinking about how it is about trying to figure things out and my role in it, our role in it, rather than not, I guess. It doesn't answer your question, but it's just one strand of thought from there. Yeah.
A question. It has to do with the piece behind you, like quantum physics and all that. And so, like, I came across this video about that and the Fibonacci sequence and 369, which is like the kind of secret of focusing on frequency, sound, energy, and how you're trying to portray that part of the quantum physics world, the secret of the universe, I guess, is like it's a little intense kind of question, but it's got to do with the quantum physics and trying to like get that picture, like, see it from all different sides and stuff. So I'm wondering, like, maybe perhaps would you, in the future, be trying to maybe do different instead of doing like linear edges, like a square or whatever, would you be maybe thinking of trying to do like curvatures? That's my question.
I see. What I found really fascinating about quantum physics is that it is talking about multiple possibilities at the same time. Whereas people like Leonardo da Vinci and Fibonacci, it was very set. That was it. That is the golden rule.
Yeah.
You stick to it. That's it. That's for everybody. Whatever. And so what I appreciate about quantum physics is this opening up of this can be good, this can be good, this is like, it's all these possibilities that are like infinite possibilities that are happening at the same time and that we don't actually fully understand. Quantum physics is actually quite young compared to, the history of whatever. And so I find that really, really nice to think with, use that as a tool to think about. But in terms of like curvature, maybe, it's, I never really know what I'm doing when I'm doing it. I talk like this as if I know everything, but no, I don't. I do because in retrospect, I can think about what I have done and then, try to figure things out and say something. But like when I go to studio, like next week, I actually wouldn't know what to do. And so, yes, it's very possible. Possibilities open in this world of quantum physics, if you look at it this way. Curvature is, something that could happen. Yeah. Thanks for that idea. Yeah.
Anything else? I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about using abstraction as a tool to address quite complex subjects. Like, have you found that you come to some places in your work that it's limiting, or especially as a 2D artist, there's everything we do is abstract. So, or on the other hand, is it just limitless? But can you see yourself addressing any complex subject through abstraction?
And I don't know, but I feel abstraction can do some things that other forms cannot. I think, even the work, perpetual guest work that I did, where I did feel I needed to specify and name the land on which these works were, because I felt abstraction couldn't have that specificity. But I think abstraction, the way that I was presenting this work on this square, on rectangle, on this glass panel on the floor, I did it because, and I still don't have words, to describe what that feeling is, except that work is exactly how I felt of having realized that I was a guest and a settler on that land. And so I think abstraction can have a very specific emotional reach that is very different from any other form or any other specificity that any other form can provide. And in this work in particular, I did combine the specificity of both text and abstraction. But I do think that abstraction can reach this kind of very specific emotion that is actually also very open. And, I think that's what I think. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great question, Molly. So, any other ideas, thoughts?
I'm just wondering if we could just for a moment maybe step back from the conceptual underpinnings of why make or what abstraction is. And I wondered if you would feel comfortable just standing back and maybe talking a little bit about perhaps essential experience, your senses, your time with a painting. Many painters would, get up and say, well, we can't talk about the painting. The painting does the talking. And that's something probably I understand. But if you have any interest at all in just talking about your experience painting this work,
This mural in
Yeah.
particular.
is that
Sure.
crazy?
No, it's not crazy. I used 3 colors. I used the cadmium red, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue. I knew when I got the layout, the floor plan and pictures of this gallery. It's my first time here at Dunlop and also in the prairies. I saw this wall and I thought, I wanna do a mural because I think it would kind of interact really nicely with these works on paper. And I didn't really know, this surface, this paint that is this kind of light gray paint that was on here too. I didn't know how my acrylic paint would go on. So the first day was a little bit of trying to put that first layer on. Cody helped me a lot in kind of, masking and putting the first drawing up. I wanted the hand to be present, the brushstrokes to be present. I didn't shy away. I didn't want it to look mechanical. I was fine with my, freehand painting just being there. But of course I do have limit, like I have these lines that the edges of each shape that are very predefined. There are many layers, 3 to 4, not that many, 3 to 4 layers in whichever surface that you're looking at. And I don't really actually quite know what the superposition, the superimposed shape, this kind of not quite squares are doing. I just, at this moment, because it's really new, this sketch is also quite new, and I quite just enjoy seeing them doing what they're doing. And seeing them at this scale, doing something different when I'm close to the wall on one side, close to the wall on the other side. I've been enjoying it tremendously. And I don't know where it's going to lead, but it's just something that seems like it's something that I don't know yet. But yeah, I think those are the things that I could talk about in this work for now.
Is it a process, do you pre-visualize, do you sort of see it before, or is it kind of a process of discovery through time, through the hours and days?
I did many sketches. I did many sketches before coming to arrive at this kind of color, this kind of composition, and so on. And of course, it's not exactly like the sketch, but it just feels similar. The sketch is on paper, of course, with watercolor. This is like acrylic on this wall paint. This is how I wanted it to feel and to have this. And in my head, somehow, this wall was much bigger, like 1.5 times bigger than this. It's something that I would like to do, like at that scale too. So I did one mural at the Guido Molinari Foundation in Montreal right before, which was maybe smaller than this wall. And so now I got this wall, which I thought was bigger. And then maybe next time I'll do a little bit larger work. But I don't really know what it means that I want to do murals, that I do murals, and that I have these shapes yet. It's a very new thing. I've been working for 25 years, and mural is very new. So.
Cool, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you do primarily temporary murals or permanent as well?
This also is something that I have yet to, decide, but so far it's been temporary. The one that I did at Molinari Foundation was actually actually, it's kind of permanent in the sense that so it's a museum that used to be his studio, but it used to be a bank building. It's like one of those neoclassical bank building that has vaults in the basement and on the main floor. And they have this vault that they use to have, as part of the exhibition, but some people put like video work or like some materials, reference materials, and so on. But the thing is that they don't, they keep all the traces of passage of time there. So the paint there is like kind of, the green from the 70s. It's still there, like it's peeling off. There are like holes. They just keep all the traces of time there. And when I visited the studio, because I studied with Molinari, and when I was a student, he had us over for drinks, and he would, show us around, and he said, this is where I keep my most prized works, because he had, works by other people like Barnett Newman and so on, and his work as well. This is where I keep my most prized works, mine. And so when I saw that space, I said, I will make a mural and that will stay there. And, people will put stuff on or like, paint will chip off, but I'm okay with that. And somehow I felt it's kind of having a layer on the history or in his space. And, of course, I thought about woman abstraction, male abstraction and all that, but, asserting my space and all that. But anyways, so that is kind of permanent, but shifting as, people will put like whatever on the wall and they'll put holes and paint over, I don't know. But this is absolutely temporary up until February 11. But I don't know. I mean, I have this idea of wanting to do something outside, maybe even, but in a way that is kind of painterly. Like Rita Letendre, for example, like that she did. I don't know. Yeah, but I think everything is temporary anyways, so.
Actually, sorry. So there's this piece right here, like, talking about the temporary stuff and like figuring out what you might want to do with that in the future. Have you ever thought about like maybe incorporating like with murals or whatever like this, incorporating like lighting to see if maybe you can create like how you're saying if you stand over there it looks different. But if you incorporate lighting, like maybe it'll pop out more.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a very good point because, we think about painting as something autonomous, like something on its own, as you said, like, it does its thing and like, it's there. Yeah. It's totally false because paintings do interact. You put this painting like in the library, it would look and feel so different. Yeah. It's like, impacts the way that I experience the feel of the painting. So absolutely, light is absolutely something. And we did spend some time, and Cody was noticing, I want something like really, like the room to be light and even. And he's like, I've never put this many spots in a show. And he pointed out how it's bending down. This rail is like, there's so many spots that it's like bent. So yes, lighting.
Dare I jump in? Because that's very different questions. So we're going to be hanging around a bit and to enjoy some beverages and conversation a little more closely. So you're invited to speak with Jinny at that time as well, or do what you need to do. So thank you so much for coming out today, and I look forward to future chances like this again. Thank you.